an amazing instrument. It has developed into an incredible voice in today's music. So many types of guitars, so many styles of playing, all sorts of gear. How does one make their voice be heard as a guitarist? My name is Jeff Floro, and welcome to All About Guitar, where we talk tone, we talk technique, we talk gear. Where we discover how we can become better musicians in a world of constantly changing technologies. Where we take a good look at everything guitar, and sometimes not exactly guitar, but just as important, so we can be more successful as a musician in today's music scene. So sit back and relax, and let's explore all about guitar. Good evening, everybody. Welcome to All About Guitar. We have a great show for you tonight. My guest is John Chiodini, and he's an amazing session guitarist, great jazz guitarist. He's done a lot of different things, and we're going to take a look at some of the more interesting sessions that he's done, and some of it's his own songwriting, and some amazing playing. And I just can't stress going through all of his music this week. There's some really interesting things that I think we all can learn from. So I just want to go ahead and welcome you to the show, John. It's an honor to have you here.
Thank you, Jeff. Love being here.
Let me get a little more level on you so we can hear you. Okay. Anyway, let's talk a little bit first about your background, and because it'll kind of set up the first clip I'm going to play for everybody. But tell us a little bit where you started, your influences, and the whole scene that you experienced that influenced what you're playing now.
Well, I'm from Providence, Rhode Island.
Okay.
And I started playing early. Played some rock and roll. When I was going to college, trying to think, a lot of stuff going through my head. But I'm thinking of early influences. I love Bill Doggett music.
Mm-hmm.
I guess the first guitarist that I really heard was Django. We had a neighbor that said, do you want to hear this? Because he heard me playing, and I was doing gigs. I was a teenager. And he said, you ought to hear this guy. And so that was the first real, that kind of music.
Mm-hmm.
And got me really interested. And then it happened really quick. Got to hear Bonnie Kessel.
Mm-hmm.
Got to hear Johnny Smith. So the influences were, amazing. And it was funny because I was like moving ahead, and then somebody said, hey, you ought to hear Charlie Christian. And so, then I went back, and it's like that whole thing. So it really wasn't, I didn't go to college for music. I went to college. I went to URI,
Mm-hmm.
studied physics, mathematics. But I always played music. So the education I got in music was really from the street, and playing and having different guys turn me on to stuff.
Well, let me ask you this. So you studied mathematics and physics. So the mathematics, it had to influence your music.
Well, yeah, I guess, Pythagoras.
Because as you break down, you break down the measures of the beat, there's a lot of mathematics to music. People don't realize it a lot. But even in something like jazz, where you're improvising a lot or stuff like that, there's a lot of, at least to me, it seemed to be.
Well, yeah, subdivisions, like 4/4 time. How many different ways can you subdivide 4/4 time? Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
Now, you were saying that you were playing rock and roll in the very early days. What were your influences there?
Chuck Berry.
Chuck Berry.
You know.
So you had a blues Was blues important to you in the early days?
Very, very much so.
Okay, so you have a blues.
Very much so.
Mhm.
Saying that's why I was drawn. I was playing rock, and really drawn to like I mentioned Bill Doggett, and that's because it was like the blues base of that music. You know, I'm from Charlie Christian, and then to Wes Montgomery.
Now, the gigs that you were playing back then, when you started gigging and stuff, were there like a lot of trios, a lot of work like as a jazz trio, or were you doing rock gigs? Or I mean,
the early gigs were like with quartet, guitar, and piano. Actually, quintet, guitar, and piano, bass, and drums, with saxophone, with a tenor. But then I got into organ trios, and spent a lot of time doing that.
Well, okay. Because, yeah, it seems to me that you were playing a lot of, where you were doing a lot of comping, and we're going to talk about that tonight because you really have an interesting way of comping, and I want to kind of get in. We were talking a little bit before the show, kind of get into his head and how he approaches comping, because there are a few that do it really well, and you do, but there's a lot more to it. It's not just, there's more to it harmonically and what what you do and how it accents the song or plays behind a vocalist or a soloist. So, but when did you come out here and get into session work, and when did you move out to California?
I got here in 1980. I had been working in Boston all through the 70s. Did a lot of session work in Boston. And as we were talking about before, I got to play with the Pops. Did like a lot of off-Broadway shows. So there was like a lot of different stuff in Boston.
So at that time, in the 70s, is when you were playing with the Pops?
Yes.
Okay. And so besides like the Pops, what kind of session work was there? Was there a lot of jingle work?
There was jingle work. Realizing Boston was like the, if you couldn't do the stuff in New York, you went to Boston. So there was that kind of thing happening.
Because each city had its own specialty.
Yes.
I mean, New York was more broader, though California, Los Angeles was movies, but there was a lot more of the jingles and songwriting, the song, where they contracted songwriters, so there was demos done and stuff. A lot of that was New York based. Yeah. But Boston did a lot of jingle work too.
There was a lot of jingle work, but there was a couple of studios. Do you remember Ace Recording Studio?
Mm-hmm.
They had a couple of big hits. I think in the rock field they had Rockin' Pneumonia, the Boogie Beat, if you remember that. I think Old Cape Cod was recorded there.
Mm-hmm.
When I started working there, they were like the toast of the town. They had a 3-track tape recorder, so they were able to bounce.
Mm-hmm.
It's like very, very hard to compete with Ace in those days. So a lot of people, trying to get their work done. So there was a bunch of stuff.
Mm-hmm. When you played with the Pops, what did they record? Just 2-track, or did they record more?
See, the basement, bottom floor of the Symphony Hall was an amazing studio. It was Deutsche Grammophon down there. And, by that time, I'm pretty sure they had four tracks in there.
Mm-hmm.
But if not more, I was down there once or twice, and that was it,
Now, I know that in symphonic work, they'll sometimes break it up so that they can go back if they need to fix something, and they don't record the whole piece all the time. Very rarely would they, like in a symphony, would they do the whole movement. But with the Pops, where you're playing shorter form, was that like you were all live, right? Because that was televised.
Yes.
So it was make it or break it. You were there, and that was it.
Yeah, and even when we did the recordings, we did a couple of albums. That was.
Yeah, the Fiedler did a lot of albums,
yes.
Actually. So, but those were all that there were straight through. There wasn't any Well, with the Fiedler albums, then I would presume it would be never be any overdubs.
No.
No, it was all live. It was straight
yeah.
live. And how did the guitar function in such a big? Because that's an interesting. I mean, Fiedler was trying to make the orchestra more contemporary to people and the television audience, which was to me was a significant thing because it brought people learned about the orchestra that might not always be aware of it. We always hear it on the radio, but he kind of brought it to the masses, so to speak. I mean, that was significant to have that great of a symphony, the Boston Symphony, play and do contemporary tunes and make it more palatable to just the general audience. But how did that? I mean, as a guitar player, that's a pretty big section.
The concerts were broken up into, they refer to them as 3 halves. Okay, and the first section was usually like overtures and operatic stuff. Middle section was guest artists playing Rhapsody in Blue or some a trumpet concerto, and the third section was the contemporary songs, and that's when I went out on stage. I didn't play the first 2. Neil Diamond songs. Mentioned the Fifth of Beethoven disco with the wah-wah pedal, which was like one of the big things that why the guitar was there, because it was the sound that the producers were looking for. And Shaft, it was like
because they did all those
wah-wah.
movie themes. Yeah.
So without the wah-wah. And as far as the other stuff, that after a while, the arrangers started including guitar parts. But in the beginning, when I started working there were no guitar parts. So they were just piano parts and try to figure out what the guitar would do. So even though I was out on stage for a lot of it, some of the I'm trying to think of, there really wasn't a place for the guitar, and so I wouldn't do very much.
So would they give you just a chord chart?
I used to have to make up my own.
Really?
Yeah, because the piano music would be.
Yeah, well, I would presume that
long.
it would
Yeah.
be written out because it was part of the orchestra. They would write all that out.
But then I would just make a chord chart from the piano.
Oh, okay. So they would give you the piano, and then you would figure out what you needed to do.
What I needed to do.
So was there anything ever specifically written for the guitar?
It got to be that way
Later on.
because in the beginning there was never a guitar in the orchestra, so there weren't any. But then when the arrangers realized that there was a guitar, then they wrote for it.
Now, when you did the jingles and the other session work, was it mostly chord charts, or did they write out stuff specifically for you to do?
They were mainly chord charts.
So you were basically
head arrangements.
Because I know a lot of stuff in the especially in the '60s into the '70s, a lot of stuff they just they didn't know how to write for guitar. I mean, classical guitar obviously had been around for a while, but in terms of electric guitar, they didn't know.
Yeah, I wasn't part of the New York jingle thing, and like I said, in Boston we were kind of copying, trying to make our own way. So a lot of times you'd go in there and whoever was responsible for writing the jingle would say, we have to cop a feel like a chameleon or something. And so you just start playing.
Yeah.
And the jingle would come out of that.
Now, when you played with the Pops, what was your standard setup? How many guitars did you bring, or did you have I assume you had one of your jazz guitars, and then did you have an acoustic or a classical, or what did
Sometimes I had a nylon. There were different things. Sometimes I played the mandolin.
Oh, wow. And was that written out, or did you just use a...
Yeah, that was a couple of... I got to play a couple of Berlioz pieces with the symphony.
Oh, very cool.
And also, my favorite, Respighi, I guess.
Respighi.
Respighi, The Fountains of Rome, Pines
Love
of
it.
Rome. Got to play the mandolin solo on that one. It's like amazing.
Yeah, and that with the Boston
Yeah.
brass section must have been just.
Yeah, well, and the strings, just
Oh, that's amazing.
it's heavenly.
Now, when you played the mandolin tuned as a mandolin too, you didn't do the
Yes.
Tommy Tedesco
Yeah.
tune it like a guitar. So that's not easy to do. That's pretty. That's great. No, so you would, but they would tell you what to bring, right? You would usually just bring your jazz guitar unless they requested, or would you just bring everything just in case?
No, we were told what the music was going to be,
Oh, okay.
what I would need.
Oh, okay. And then for your general sessions for the jingles, what would you bring?
That was the same way. Like you'd say, we're going to.
Oh, they would tell you?
Yeah, like whether I needed a Strat or a jazz box.
Mm-hmm. And then what did you now guitar-wise? What were you using back then?
I had a Strat.
Okay.
I was using this.
You had that back then too?
This guitar.
This is a beautiful guitar.
I had a Les Paul.
Oh, you had everything. And what kind of amps?
Fender.
Fender amps. Small ones or
Yeah,
like a
small
twin?
ones.
Even with the pops, you used a small one?
Yeah, very small one.
A very small one. He has this Johnny Smith here this is a beautiful. How old is this guitar?
1965.
1965 Johnny Smith. This is beautiful. Actually, play a little bit on it just to give them an idea what this thing sounds like. It's beautiful. Now, everybody, we as we were listening to him play, the chord change, the way he phrases the chords, keep that in mind, because the next clip the first clip I'm going to play, it has a lot to do with the type of voice leading and what he's playing and how he extends the chords, because it's when I was in school, we studied the Johnny Smith method and stuff like that, and this is way beyond. I mean, you're going into some interesting directions. I just want to mention also, too, guitar-wise, this guitar, if you're not familiar with the Johnny Smith, the humbucker is mounted on the pickguard. And if you look at the guitar, if you can hold it up a little bit, you can see the pickups mounted on the, it's on the pickguard. It's not, the soundboard is completely there's nothing touching it except the bridge.
Yeah, nothing screwed in.
Right. And all his electronics are in the pickguard, and you can see where he's plugged in on the bottom there. So it's, and that's what Johnny Smith was known for. And when you were listening to him playing, he's coming through his voice mic, and I have his amp mic, but his amp's really soft. A lot of that sound is the archtop acoustically, which is again a nice touch. It gives it a little more of a little more articulation, I think, because that guitar is a bright guitar. If you just listen to it without an amp, it's very like any archtop. It's made to cut through, because in big band that was important at that time before they had amplification. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to play this clip. It's actually unreleased. It's coming out, so we get but it's actually not the clip. It's the whole song, and the reason is there's so much going on. I was trying to edit this, and I just couldn't edit it. There's just like, no, this is too important to look at, and it's a duet. It's David Easley and John Chiodini. The album isn't named yet. They don't have the name for the album yet, but the song's called All the Things You Are, and it's a duet. And listen to the interplay between the guitars. So they'll do some chord things and together, and the two playing together make this like super chord. And then also to listen how they comp against each other. So when one's playing the melody or improvising, the other one's comping against them, and there's a rhythmic interplay there that I think is very unique, and it's part of that style. And I want to talk about that after we play the song, so you can get we can understand a little more of what's going on when you're comping, because I think one of the most unique things in the music that I've heard from what I've heard from these clips is this the way you comp. It's really interesting. So this is All the Things You Are. Let's take a listen. thought there was a button at the end. I can't remember. No, anyway, again, the interplay between the two guitars. And I presume that was pretty well written out, specific, because you're doing a lot of stuff harmonically lead.
What we did, the structure is in the beginning, playing the melody, David's playing the high part, I'm playing the low part.
Mm-hmm.
And that's for the whole first chorus. Then the first jazz chorus, David plays.
Mm-hmm.
I play the second jazz chorus. And then there's that soli section that we play together.
Mm-hmm.
And David had written that out. But the way we work it, he writes out, if he writes out a piece, and I write out my part, and if I wrote out a thing, he writes out his part, you know. And then we finished it together.
It's amazing how the two, when you're at that beginning part, those chord, because it's like a chord melody thing, but you're both playing, but it's like a super chord, and it's just interesting how it blends. That's I know for myself, when I've played with other people and we're doing a lot of chords, it sometimes gets too muddy and too thick, but it's just perfect. It's clear. You can hear all the harmonic changes that you're doing in the chords and the extensions, but at the same time it's full. And for two guitars, I mean, that's a pretty full sound.
A lot of it, we're thinking of the harmony, but we're also thinking of the timbre of the instrument.
Mm-hmm.
So that, you know, if you have, you know, if you've got that, and you want to, so I have an open.
Yeah, and it doesn't. Those lower strings ring true, and it doesn't get muddy, mushy,
Right.
which is interesting. That's that a lot of it. It's what you're playing there. So, but again, and then also too rhythmically, what you guys do against each other a lot. And then doing the unison where you do a little bit, and then you throw a little harmony in there. That's very cool. But I'm gonna play another clip, and this is with the Denny Sewell. Sywell trio. And this is drums, guitar, bass, and organ. And it's interesting because this one, in this clip, it's called Amber. I think the beginning, the organ is under you. You're playing the melody. And the way he phrases the organ, it's very similar to what you do. And the tone is that kind of rich, deep sound of the jazz, like the jazz guitar. So sometimes it sounds almost like another guitar. And then he goes and he does a solo, and you comp under him. But it's interesting because you guys have a similar feel, and it works. I mean, it's different, but again, it's a very rhythmical interplay. And then I think that'll kind of set us up to talk a little bit more about comping and how you approach it. So let me go ahead and play this clip. This is called Amber, and this is the Denny Sywell trio.
This is not released yet. This album's coming out in, I believe, September 7th, Denny told me.
Oh, okay. And do we know the name of it yet? No.
I don't know.
Oh, okay. So it's that new. So let's take a listen. This is Amber. What's interesting about that clip is, at least to me, and tell me if I'm wrong, the timekeeper in the song is the bass. He's right on the money. He's the metronome.
That's Joe.
That's Joe.
That's the organ.
That's the
Oh, he's
beat.
playing. He's not. There's not a real bassist there.
No.
It's just him. Oh, wow, that's amazing. Aren't you? Oop, hit the wrong one. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
So he's playing a piano. He's playing.
He's on the B3.
the B3 on
playing-
the low end.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's just,
Joe's bad. Hey,
that's just-
Joe.
that's
You
just
must hear this show.
so. And what's interesting too is you're comping. You're playing against the drums a little. Both of you guys are doing splashes. You're doing little accents everywhere, and it's great because it kind of syncopates. So and also Joe does when he's comping behind you too. He's kind of doing that stuff, and he does some really great chords. They're like, whoa, what was that? You know, that kind of thing.
Yep.
But which gets into the comping. What are you listening to find because there's a lot of space in there, even though you guys are all going at it at the same time. There's a lot of room, there's a lot of air in there, and you're playing a lot of chords in there, and but it fits. And how do you find your space? I'm trying to get into your mind a little bit in your how you comp.
Well, I mean, it's all ears, right? So you know what the harmony is.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to make this like so you know Joe's playing the bass part.
Right.
Oh, but if he's not, there's a bass player. So you really don't need to play low stuff. Let's say the first chord there is
Right.
this kind of thing. So I don't need to do anything down here. That's already been taken.
Mm-hmm.
And then depending on what sound and what range Joe's in, like if he's playing in here someplace, I don't need to be playing over there either.
So if he's getting like in the
So
lower mids, you're up on the top.
Yeah, I'm going to be doing that. And when he's up there screaming and stuff, I'm going to be like doing there.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, that's the first thing. Just answering your question is about what the space is about. Then you're listening to the drums and how active the drums are playing behind, because you don't want to clash with that either. So it's a lot of times on guitar, and this goes not only for this trio but other places, I listen for like what a percussion player would be doing.
Mm-hmm.
And taking that space, not only, rhythmically, timbre-wise.
So rather than like, for example, one way you could approach it is you can do the stings with the drums. You could sync with it to dun, 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 whatever. Or you can, which I think you do more, is you play against it and syncopate with it. So you're kind of counterpointing it.
The fun in Jeff is like you're doing the thing, and then a series of shots will come where you're together,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the most fun because it's organic. I mean, you've hit these shots together, but they're not written, they're not planned. They came from what I was playing and what he was playing.
You both
Yeah.
felt that at the same moment.
Right,
And
right.
then all of a sudden you hear.
Yeah.
It's
But
like-
some of the stuff that I think is really intriguing is how you play against him. It's like he'll go ba-dum, and you'll go ba-dum, dum, dum, or you'll just counter it. And that, to me, makes it even more, because you're getting like this back and forth thing happening,
Yeah, then you're thinking of almost like counterpoint, but with
Right,
rhythm,
right. So to me, that's an interesting part of it, because that's what makes it more unique. Because most people they'll try to hit the hits, the main stings. Though the drummer's he's freewheeling a lot, which I think is it makes it feel more improvised in that sense.
Yes.
Because he's not following that much of a pattern. He's keeping it more random. And as I said, the bass line is the most precise part of the whole thing. Everything else is like in and around and,
Yeah.
and like anything goes type of a thing.
You know, it's totally different if someone's singing, because now you're hearing different things when you're comping. You have a different function,
Right.
when you're comping.
So it's interesting because you're picking different things out from each of the instruments. So you're listening harmonically to the organ, the keyboards. You're following you're listening to the bass, or in this case he's playing it, but you're listening to the bass, and so that tells you that gives you latitude that you can play above that. You can simplify what you're doing so it cuts more, and then you're listening to the drums for rhythmical hits and how to counterpoint, how to accent him and the rest of it.
And listening to the way, like when Joe's playing, listening to the way he's phrasing,
Mm-hmm.
so that what I'm playing is complementing what he's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And we like to think about it as dialoguing,
Yeah.
just like you and I are talking right now.
Mm-hmm.
It's what you're doing when you're playing.
No, and that to me is the critical part. And you answered my question. That is what's going on in your mind, because all of that it's second nature. Obviously, you're playing, but it's all happening. You're listening to all that stuff. That to me is the critical part. Is all those other parts. What everybody else is doing shows you where you go. And I think that's the lesson there. Now I'm going to play another clip. This is with Tish Oni, if I'm saying the name right, on vocals. You wrote the music, and you were telling me that Peggy Lee wrote the lyrics to this.
Yes.
This is called Brand New Baby. This is just a clip. This is a trio with guitar, bass, and drums, and her singing. So it's just it's pretty straightforward, though it sounds really full. But listen again. He's comping. Listen to how the audience. Listen how he's comping under the vocal, and then I have a little bit of the solo in there. But take a listen to this. This is great. And
Who's playing on this?
This is Chuck Berghofer on bass and Kendall Kay on drums.
okay, so where is it? I'm looking for it. It's in front. There it is. Brand New Baby. Here we go. Take a listen to this, and we'll talk more about this.
I'm gonna sing, sing, sing. We've got a way of loving that makes our world go round, and you should hear our music. It makes a brand new sound. Yes, with my brand new baby, I'll never need a thing. 'Cause with my brand new baby, I'm gonna sing, 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 do, 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 do.
Very cute.
Now, I pulled it. This song's much longer, and it's mainly vocal. I got it, so I wanted to get a little bit of of what you were doing on the guitar. But you can hear a little bit how you're doing more now on this song. You're giving her full support, both rhythmically and harmonically. In that, at least that's what I'm hearing. You're playing a little more rhythmical. You're not in your comping. It's a little more straightforward. but to keep it moving. And then the drums are just and bass are basically supporting you.
Right.
But it's really full. I mean, for 3 people, that's pretty amazing.
But my whole idea on that, and I spent a lot of time playing in big bands, and that's what I do when I comp. I picture what a big band would play. And that's,
So you're doing like the stings, the brass strings.
and what the brass would do, what the saxes would do, and, you know.
Now, when you do your little melodies and fills, what instrument are you influenced by? Is it a saxophone or is it flute?
Well, that's all different. I think it has a lot to do with not only the lyric, but the way the vocalist is phrasing, interpreting. You know.
Now, we're almost out of time, and I'm gonna end the show with a song with Elaine, because I'm gonna play that out, which is the full piece. But before I do that, real quick, I want to just play this clip and talk a little about this new album with Jim Self. Lauri has a copy of it there, playing guitar and tuba. That's just not your normal everyday combination.
Jim is the tuba player.
No, he's good. I mean, his tone is to kill. But what I want to, let me play the clip and you can comment on it.
Okay.
But what I want to show here is, this was another one that was tough to edit. But basically, it's just ending the melody. The tuba's playing the melody and you're supporting it with chords. You're doing the harmonics. And then the harmonic content. And then you switch over and play the melody. And it's interesting how the tuba accompanies him and gives you the harmonic progression, and then it goes back at the very end. I just start a little bit of the theme and take you out. Let me play this real quick because we're running out of time. This is called Winter from what's the name?
Floating in Winter.
Floating in Winter. Here we go. Now, I've never heard a tuba function that way. He's giving you total, since he can't play more than one note, he's using those little bum 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 bum, and it sets up the harmonic.
Isn't it great?
It's very clear,
So great.
harmonically to me, and,
You know,
and it gives you a lot of room.
Yeah, it gives you freedom to bend and stuff. But Jim was a bass player. I mean, he played bass. So.
Yeah, no, that's because he's totally supporting it.
Yeah, and his time is like.
Now,
And
before
this album has some great covers.
Yes,
like renditions of
show that up.
Chuck
Post it.
Mangione and Antonio Carlos Jobim, and just fantastic. Here's Jim. He's in China right now.
So we're out of time, but I want to set up. I want to give us enough time to play Elaine's piece that you did with Elaine, where she wrote the lyrics and you wrote the music.
What's her full name?
Elaine Mills.
Miles.
Miles.
Elaine Miles.
I'm getting everybody's names wrong. I'm sorry. I'm sorry, Elaine. Anyway, where are you playing? Where can people hear you? What's going on?
Let me see, this month. The end of the month, I'm doing a guitar night with John Paisano.
Mm.
There's a gig with Kat Connor at Vibratos, I think on the 13th. That's good band. There's a couple of other things I can't remember.
And his website is www.johnchiodini.com. So you can check out everything there, and there's some cool pictures of these guitars too. All right, let's get into anything before I forget. Anything that you're doing?
Well, I could do an early plug for Troy Dexter's show. He's back at Vitello's on the 15th of June, but he's going to be here before that.
Okay.
He'll be here
we'll
on the 11th.
So we will talk about that.
Yeah, Troy.
And thank you again for getting John on the show, Lauri. As always, is amazing.
You're welcome.
Now, I'm going to play this whole song. It's called The Journey. And is it on this? Yes, it's on this album. I'm going to flash it right now, and I'll flash it while we're playing it out. And what's interesting about Elaine is she's one of those vocalists that goes in and out around the beat. She'll go in front of it, behind it. The way she phrases, she'll play against it. And it's a style, and it's very specific. It's not, like she can't keep time. I'm saying is she's specific. She's doing it on a reason. So it puts you in a different position comping, because you're comping behind her. And in this group, if I'm correct, it's just drums, bass, and guitar behind her.
Is.
So you're keeping more. Who's the timekeeper in this?
We kind of all are, because it's like a shuffle. It's a shuffle. And it's a great band.
Yeah.
Kurt Bisquera's playing drums.
Okay.
It's great.
And Abraham playing bass.
Oh,
Nice.
he's amazing.
Now, does she play also? Does she play, or she's just singing?
She's singing and writing.
Cool.
So but listen how she just way she phrases. The phrasing's unique, and it's interesting because working with that kind of vocalist, it's not like a pop thing where you're singing a tempo and everything's click track and stuff like that. She's just going around, and it works. She's phrasing for the lyric.
Yeah, exactly. She's making you understand the lyric. She's
Right.
singing the lyric.
And I think that's the amazing part. But you guys playing behind her, there's other challenges. It's a little different than just playing with a regular behind a singer. And take a listen how they comp behind her, because that's interesting. I mean, yes, it's a shuffle, like you said, so the tempo's pretty steady. But it's interesting what's going on. And she just goes against you sometimes, and it's brilliant. It's really brilliant. I want to thank you for being on the show, and I want you to come back. We have to talk more. Maybe at some point we can have him back with
You want to bring Jim
John,
back?
with John on the tube, and do both together.
With Jim Self?
Jim Self. I am the worst with names. Jim Self. But anyway, yes, I'd love to have both of them back. But you definitely have to come back. We have a lot more to talk about.
Well, you mentioned you're going to work on another duo project with him?
Yes.
So that would be the time.
Yeah.
We'll bring you back
So
when,
we'll bring
when
you back
that's
in there.
full swing.
Great.
So anyway, this is The Journey. Everybody have a great week, and take a listen and just listen what's happening here. And Elaine, she's amazing. Amazing vocals. And this is from the album Spin the Bottle. So everybody have a great night, and take a listen to this. This is a really cool. You're going to really like this. Here we go. The Journey.
Your story made me cry, and then you laughed and asked me why. I said your tale is like my own, it even carries every line. You said the only way to heal myself is swimming in the truth. The waves of shame recede, and then the sea is smooth. sage at 33. You say the world is small and round, nobody owns a living thing, and all the answers are within yourself. Consider all the past to be the road you took to find yourself at last. It's not about arriving, you're going there anyway. Important thing to do is to laugh at yourself every single day of your life. So as we journey through, the only thing I ask of you, remember how you came to be and be forgiving too. You know the only way to heal yourself is swimming in the truth. Waves of shame recede, and then the sea is smooth. Not about arriving, you're going there anyway. Important thing to do is to laugh at yourself every single day of your life. So as we journey through, the only thing I ask of you, remember how you came to be and be forgiving too. You know the only way to heal yourself is swimming in the truth. The waves of shame recede, and then the sea is smooth. The waves of shame recede, and then the sea is smooth.